Hello, hello. How is everybody doing? I'm so happy to see you guys and to get started on another week. Just hang in there and keep pressing in strong. All right, this week we're talking about music theory and history. All right, there are diverse forms of music and it's open to all. And the reason why I have that is because there was a time in history where music wasn't available to everybody. It was not open to you if you didn't have money or status. So thank goodness that has changed. Unless you had the people that were kind of impoverished, they had their own language, their own music. So we can be grateful for that also. And the funny thing about music, we can't say specifically where, who, what, when, where it started, but we do know that modern technology as far as recordings and gramophones made it possible for us to hear things that maybe people in the other world were hearing. That could be your grandmother's favorite song that she sang to you at bedtime. It could be a lot of things that maybe others didn't know about. And so it kind of helped put things on the map. All right. I'm going to just give you a quote from Beethoven. It says, music can change the world. And that is so true. Another quote from Friedrich Nietzsche is, without music, life would feel like a mistake. All right. Let's move on, get into our history. And I'm just going to give you a shortened version of all this because it's a lot if you don't have a clear understanding of music. So I'm just going to give you the basics, all right? 20th century changes to music, such as the gramophone, the radio, which I mentioned earlier. It brought a new way of delivering music to those unreachable areas and populations, all right? And as we talked about in class at the beginning, we talked about, how the families would sit in front of the radio, listen to the game or listen to different forms of music. So we can be grateful there. Some had a gramophone. And we talked about that also in the previous class. That preceded the record player. All right, moving on. There are numerous forms of music. Right now, we're just going to focus on the main six. And it's called the six periods are medieval, the Renaissance, Baroque, classical, and romantic period. All right. And feel free to go back through this PowerPoint to make sure you're ready for your quiz and just to save information to your mental data. All right. Medieval. It covers the 6th century and the 16th century. And this is basically a chanting form of music. And this is the only form that was invited into the church now. And the reason why I say that is because remember we talked about a time where they didn't let you play certain songs in the church. And we talked about how a lot of blues artists struggle because you weren't allowed to do secular and gospel. All right, so keep that in mind. The Renaissance phase, the 16th century is when this occurred. It's also called the rebirth. And during this period, musicians started changing things up and they wanted to come with a more creative way of putting things out there. All right, and we talked about the Harlem Renaissance. So, it was a different time. Renaissance always means a rebirth, a different way of doing something, changing it up. All right, let's move into a Baroque. The word Baroque is an Italian word which means bizarre. All right, composers experimented with form, musical contrast, styles, and instruments. That means they just experiment a lot of different sounds, a lot of different rhythms, a lot of different notes and melodies. It was just a beautiful thing. People started branching out more and thinking, hey, let's do something different here, right? Anything different, many people call it bizarre or strange, right? Classical happened during the period of 1750 to 1820. The piano was the primary instrument and composers wanted to create music that was less complicated and easier to understand, which makes a whole lot of sense because there are times when, when we talked about the opera, a lot of people felt like, I don't know what that is. I can't keep up. What is it? But once we broke it down and you learned the elements and the language, it became a little bit easier. All right, classical. We said that with the piano. Okay. Yeah, we use the piano. Their romantic phase, 1800 to 1900. During this time, the flute and the saxophone was invented. And romancists believed this was allowing their imagination and intense emotion to kind of come through their music. And we know, you look back at famous saxophone players such as Kenny G. I love Kenny G. If you listen to it, just a beautiful, winded sound. It's almost like a flowing rhythm. All right, moving on to the 20th and the 21st century. we see the emergence of the electronic instruments, and we'll get into that a little bit later. We're just gonna, keep it simple for now. In this phase, the artists were willing to experiment with new music forms, use technology to enhance their composition. All right, so we talked about that, using a computer, and a good example of that would be Roger, when he had the little pipe to his neck and making that different, it sounded real computerized. All right. All right, let's go. We're going to do just a basic little, introduction to music notes so you can start recognizing things. We're going to get into part 2 of this next week. We're going to carry this one over into another week. All right, the grand staff is the thing you see on your right with the 5 lines here, all right? And this, some people call it a funny looking S. That is known as a treble clef. The definition of a staff is a pair of 5 lines by a brace that contain the music for a single instrument. And we have so many different instruments. We have the computerized instruments, the piano, saxophone, the flute, the trumpet. So this is where most musicians look, and we'll get into a little bit later because you'll have a time signature and some other different things. All right, moving on. The treble clef. We have 2, the treble and the bass. So the treble clef is located at the top of the staff. All right. And it tells you which note is found in each line or space. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right. In order to memorize the lines, this is the old school way of memorizing treble clef lines. Every good boy does fine. All right. And you can see I placed the staff here at the bottom. Every good boy does fine. That's E, G, B, D, and F. Those are the lines. All right, let's move on to the spaces. Treble clef spaces can be memorized, as space, F-A-C-E. And those are those 4 spaces you see. Once again, that's F-A-C and E. All right, moving on to the bass clef. The bass clef lies at the bottom of the staff, and it also it's called an F clef also because it wraps around the highest F note on the bass staff. All right. The treble clef lines can be memorized as good boys do fine always. Once again, good boys do fine always. So there's G, B, D, F, and A. All right. And the spaces can be memorized as all cows eat grass. It's a funny way to memorize that. But anytime you think of something funny or witty way to remember something, it helps you, and it puts up a trigger. You're like, oh, I remember that. Okay. All cows eat grass is the space there. All right. We're just keeping it very basic. All right. Basic music notes. We're going to start with just a few for now, just the top 3. All right. The one you see on the top here is a whole note. And this is a half note. Second one we have here. And this is a quarter note. All right. The whole note, it gets 4 beats. So if I were in class with you, and we are in a virtual class, so listen, it gets 4 beats. Pop, 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 pop. 4 beats. Pop, 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 pop. 4 beats. All right. Your quarter note, it gets 2 beats. All right. Pop, pop. Once again, your quarter note received 2 beats. Pop, pop. And the last note you see in your left is the quarter note. It gets 1 beat. Pop. Hope I didn't say anything wrong. Let me go back. Let's go back. All right, well, just remember that we have the whole note, the half note, and the quarter note, all right? And here, these are some of the references that I use. I want you guys to click on these links, and it'll take you directly to the references that I used, all right? The first was Time to Face the Music, Note Names, Treble Clef and Bass Clef, and the last one was A Beginner's Guide to Music History. All right, so I want you guys to take time, go through these PowerPoints as many times as you need to, because it will be on your quiz. All right. If you have any questions, always to reach out to me, and don't forget to meet me in the Zoom room Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. All right. So I hope this has helped you guys. Just let me know if you have any questions. All righty.